I am sure you've heard before that you might have lived a past life. What if I told you that hypnosis can take you there? Welcome all to another episode of No More Distractions by Namaste City. January is officially over and we're in February, the month of love and hearts. The end of the past year for me was a lot about connecting with new souls, and this year is a lot about groundedness and reconnecting with myself and my loved ones. It is more about being selective with my time and saying yes only to the opportunities that really serve me. One of the things I love doing is spending quality time with my sister, who is always such a great listener and such a caring soul. She has been there for all my highs and my lows, and she's always been so supportive of any of my endeavors. I have been talking to her about joining me at the studio for a while because she has so much to share. Today is even extra special for me because she's sharing something with me for the first time while we are recording this episode. Are you ready to listen to this? Welcome everybody to another episode of No More Distractions by Namaste City. Today I have a special guest with me. Right next to me, if you see the video or maybe you're just listening to the audio, that's fine. But I am sitting with Jo. Jo is my lovely, beloved sister. And I am so excited to be doing this with her today. She's going to be sharing a really cool experience with us. It's going to be the first time I am going to be listening to this experience. And it has to do with her past life regression hypnosis that she did, which we're going to get more into it in a little bit and explain what that is. But for now, for those that don't know you, Jo, can you share a little bit about your background and what you've been busy with recently?
So I came to the US for studies like you did. I went to St. Lawrence University for my bachelor's, where I studied psychology and communications. And then I went to Pace University for my master's, where I studied strategic management with a focus on talent development. And after that, I've been really involved in the startup world. Currently working for a revenue growth AI startup based in New York. And I'm also creating my own startup, an EdTech one, regarding leadership development for next-gen leaders.
Amazing. Awesome background. And I always love listening about all the endeavors you do and the new thing that you're learning about. I feel like you're the ideal person for continuous education in a way. You're so busy, but at the same time you always make the time to read a new book, learn about AI has been huge. I feel like has been on top of your list. But also I feel like you've been focusing a lot on self-care and finding that balance that we talk about in this podcast all the time, right? Which is balancing your workload with taking care of yourself, your mind, your body. And I think one of the main topics that you've been really curious about recently is past lives, right? And you learned a lot by reading a book that I want you to tell us all about that. But it's the first time I really learned about that, where you can apparently do hypnosis that doesn't only focus on resolving trauma of your current life, but your past lives. Is that right? Can you share a little bit more with us about that?
Sure. So I started getting into this whole topic of past life regression after I started doing Reiki. Reiki, for those that don't know, is really like a healing meditation that allows you to tap into your energy and align your chakras. And so doing this, getting very close to my coach, her name is Ashley, by the way. If you're hearing this, Ashley, I love you, girl. She introduced me to this topic by sharing some personal experiences. And she suggested 2 books. One of them being Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Weiss. That it was my first really, experience with this. And what I really took away is the fact that this doctor, mind you, studied at like Harvard, MIT, well known globally, like he got so many awards. He had the courage to come out and say, I know this is a very controversial topic, but I'm gonna write about my own client and her stories, and basically whoever believes me. So I get intrigued, and the story is about a woman that goes in his office and she's suffering from all these like mental health issues. She can't sleep, she has all these phobias. And so usually what happens with these people is you do a hypnosis and you understand what the trauma really is about, where it stems from, and then you heal it. So the woman goes again and again every week to the doctor. She doesn't feel better. So he's really like trying to understand how far along he has to take her in hypnosis to understand the origin of the trauma. Because they went till like she was 3 years old, I believe.
Wow.
And he's so experienced, you know, he started like trying to understand what's happening. So he asked her, go back in time. And she starts like explaining what she sees and what she feels, and he understands that this is not like who she is today. Like she spoke about things that he knew she had no knowledge of, or she used different language. And slowly, it became evident that it was a past life.
Wow.
And so he was learning as he was going with her, basically, because that was his first also experience with past lives. And he got then into like religious topics, and he started researching about it. And he ended up, after a lot of sessions with her, being able to treat her and seeing how much it changed. And so they were both kind of learning from each other, and they created this very interesting like relationship of healing. And for him, he was like, okay, now understand that, you know, this life is not the only thing that we have. Like, we've come from previous lives, we'll go to future lives, there are different dimensions, etc. So how he healed this, because he became happier and more content with knowing that, you know, it's okay, like we don't have to figure out everything today. And from here, although you could say, okay, like understanding you have lived all these previous lives, and some were very traumatic, like she saw herself being killed in a war and like starve, and she lived through some crazy times. You could say that she would even be even more traumatized after that, but she actually wasn't. She got better and better. And it was an amazing book. It really opened my eyes, and then I got curious to start reading a little more about it.
So, I'm sorry, but this is really interesting, because I also have that like fear in a way in my head that if you were to relive some of your past, it can be triggering, right? And especially if you have to live something you've never felt before. So it's just very interesting that this is actually a form of therapy that does heal you.
But I mean, for her in that particular case, yeah, like her whole healing was this. But usually this is not something you do like every week. So
Right.
you do one time off, or, you know, on a lower level, sometimes people go to quit smoking or like to quit a habit. So it helps reframing. But that particular case, I wouldn't say is the most common one, that you go again and again and again. But she had a lot of traumas that she was basically holding on to from previous lives that she was never able to deal with.
And it was almost like an experience, I feel like, for the doctor as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
He like kept trying without getting anywhere, and all of a sudden realizing you can go to a whole other past life.
And he played a huge role in the field too. And then after him, a lot of psychologists came out and said, you know, these are my experiences with my clients, and it became more and more like spoken about. And now it's actually like a thing. People go to hypnosis and they do these past life regressions.
Wow. So it was something that really interested you, huh? And you wanted to try it yourself?
Yeah, and honestly, I did have that fear too, to a certain extent, that you shared. But to me, it was more than that. It was, what if I go and find someone that I know in my life? Because that's another thing the book talked about, how sometimes we have this deep connection with someone in this life, and it really, they said, comes from a previous life.
Right.
But what's tricky about it is that me and you could know each other in previous life, but it could be a totally different setting. Like, you could be my teacher, or we could be best friends, or
Yeah.
I could be your aunt. Like, it could be whatever. And then there is this stage in between where, till you change life again, you're in this stage where we might have chosen and decided that in this life we'll be sisters, because we still think there's things we need to teach each other. The whole point about living is basically to learn. We have some lessons to learn. And so we will never know what this, decision was, but for some reason we're here now, we're sisters.
So you think these decisions are decisions that we take?
And I don't know 100%, but that's the theory.
Wow.
The other cool thing, I believe, is that there's different ways people experience past life regressions. And I'll share mine, but you could feel like you're really in it, or you could see yourself more as a third party. And it's almost like you do astral projection, like you can see your...
Wait, yeah, for those who don't know
Yeah.
what astral projection is, can you share?
Yeah, it's about being in the astral plane, which is a different kind of dimension where our souls live. And if you really do it successfully, there's a saying like you can travel basically anywhere, and you see everything as a third person. So you can leave your body and, let's say, go and visit like your mom in Greece and come back.
But this is part of a meditation practice in a way, right? It just on a different level, I guess.
So it's not hypnosis.
Right.
But it does require a very deep state of relaxation. So I would say that's the only similarity.
But it's something you could kind of guide yourself to get there. Hypnosis, you usually need somebody else to guide you.
Exactly.
Okay. So share a little bit about your experience with that. I mean, I guess you kind of shared what got you to the point to make that decision. You had a fear, but you were ready to try it, and you set up your hypnosis therapy. And how was that like? How did it start? How did they guide you? And then what did you feel? What did you see? And then we can talk about the after effects.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that fear left my brain the moment I had talked to a friend of mine a day before. And he said, you really need to just put the intention of, no, it will be great, nothing scary will happen, everything will be positive. And that's what I did. And I was like, you know what? I signed up for it. I might as well do it. So I showed up. It started with really 30 questions where I had to nod yes or no. And that really helped the doctor understand if I'm more physical or emotional, so that she would understand how to guide the session. And it turned out, I think I was like 60% physical, 30 emotional, something like that. And so she started by guiding me to relax. I had to put my left hand on the table, and she created this imagery where there were balloons tied up on my left hand that took me higher and higher and higher. And she kept repeating herself, saying, my hand feels lighter and lighter, light as a feather. And the rest of my body got heavier and heavier. Then I remember she said, put your hand straight, turn it around, and I will feel extremely heavy. And it did.
Wow.
And it was a little trippy, but I did feel relaxed. And it's usually I do Reiki at night, like I go to bed afterwards, but that was like 11 a.m. in the morning. So very different like dynamic, where I had to turn off my head from like my morning meetings and say, okay, now it's time to relax. And later on I went on the bed, and it started kind of like Reiki, guiding me with this bright light that starts from the crown of your head all the way down to your body, releasing anything that doesn't serve you. And then when I went into this deeper state, she kept saying, deep sleep. Every time I say deep sleep, with your approval, you go into the hypnosis state. And later on, she started counting reverse, like 10 to 1, and her voice became deeper and deeper too. And towards the end, she says, imagine there is a hypnosis ladder of 20 steps. You're on the top, and with every step you take, reverse, you go back in time. So you start thinking of your younger years, then teenage years, then baby, then you are in your mom's belly, then before that, you were a soul. So I'm imagining going down the ladder, and then she's saying, there is a hallway with a door. At 3 to 1, I'll open the door, and then once you're in the door, basically your soul is free to go anywhere it wants. And the key there is that the soul knows what past life to take you, because again, you have to learn something from it. So I'm there floating, and she says, I'll count to 3, and you'll just feel like someone is grabbing you, and you'll go down to earth, back to the person you're supposed to relieve.
Right.
So she does that, and I didn't know how to feel, like what to expect, right? So I wasn't sure if it was even working. I'm like, so am I doing it right now, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel at the beginning that I just see a rocky like floor environment. But I couldn't really see much more than that, like a person or what's going on. So when she asked me, I'm like, I don't know if it's working, you know, like I don't know what's going on.
So you were talking, she was asking you questions.
Yes.
You had your eyes closed,
Yeah.
you were in that state, but you were still
Very
able
conscious.
to answer. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I could understand we're just having a convo. So I'm like, I don't know if it's working. Said, okay, let's count again or something like that. But when it happened again, I did see the same. So I told myself, you know what, that's it.
That must be right.
Yeah, that must be right. And she said, it does feel like you're imagining, but you're not. So, I mean, till this day, I don't know, but I'll tell you what I lived. So I started looking down, and I think what really freaked me out at the beginning was that I was looking at a man's foot. So I'm like, what is happening? So I see a man's foot with a sandal on, like ancient Greek sandals. So I'm like, what's going on, bro? And I started looking around, and it felt like it was a market, like people were selling fruits and stuff. So she guides me, like, walk around, start seeing what's going on. And I see this woman on the corner nodding like she knows me. But I could feel that I wasn't from there. So I see next to me I had a horse. And I felt like I was just visiting that place. But people knew me. So one thing led to the other. I suddenly feel like I'm there to meet somebody. So I ask how to go where I'm supposed to go. And apparently I was going to meet the dad of the woman I was going to marry. Now thinking back to it, I'm like, how did I even come to these conclusions?
Yeah,
and how did I
but
know?
it's like you knew.
I knew. That was like my first instinct, like I knew.
It's probably like when you're dreaming and you don't know like the full story, but you're right in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was kind of like walking, I was going there, and she asked me, you want to go to another scene? I'm like, yep. So she says, okay, I'll count again. You can go anywhere in time, back or in the future, and you'll just know where to go. And now fast forward, I'm with that woman. I could see that she has like blonde hair. We're at our house, 2 little kids running around, and it's her birthday. There's a birthday cake on the table, but I was kind of looking at the window, like my head was at the war. I was gonna go fight, and it was really back in time because.
So you were a man.
Yeah, I was the same person as the first scene. So that was the first part. Then moving forward, now I'm a woman, a teacher at a school somewhere in Latin America, and my hair was gray and was on a bun, and I could see on the blackboard, like a chalkboard, sorry, that I was doing a division, so I understood I was teaching math.
Okay, okay. But I'm sorry, was it you looking at yourself as a third person, or were you actually living it?
Yeah, it was more as a third person.
Okay.
But somehow I knew that this person was me.
you. Okay.
And I saw the kids there looking at me while I was teaching, and there's a man at the door that's looking at me, but no one else could see him. And I couldn't understand who he is, why he's there. He was smiling, and I'm telling her this, and it's like, can you see his eyes? Can you see who it is? And I couldn't really, because apparently she said, the eyes are the eyes of the soul, and like maybe you can recognize him from your life, and I couldn't. So that was weird. And then I had 2 more scenes, which were very impactful. So she says again, go back in time, in the future, whatever you want. And I see myself now being a grandpa, fishing in a lake. And next to me, we're sitting on a rock, it's my grandson. And I'm just telling him about life and all the trips I've done. And then I see, it was at a house in the lake, and I see his mom, who was my daughter, basically taking on us. And suddenly, I knew I was gonna die. So I felt the need to tell the grandson, everything about me, but I didn't have time. So I reached next to me, and I had a book, and I gave him a book that was brown with gold, and it had a key on it. So I understood it was a mystery book, but it was his grandma's. And I'm telling you, I don't know how I knew these things.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him as, I guess, my attempt to pass on something, because my life was coming at an end. And then she said, fast forward to your death. How did you die? And I just saw me like just dead from AIDS. Like I didn't feel pain or anything. But it was so sad. I started crying with my eyes closed.
Wow.
And it's like, how you feel? I'm like, I just feel sad. Like, that's just sad.
That's crazy.
And she's saying, what do you think, like, is the lesson, why you're living this? And I said, I think the point is that this man spent his whole life without a specific goal, that now that his life came to an end, he was trying to pass everything on, and he didn't know how. But I said, I think I know why I'm here, like, what's my goal, and, like, I think I have a plan. So that was very interesting.
Wow.
Why you're crying? Don't cry.
No, I don't. I'm just emotional because that was a crazy story.
Yeah. But then the last one is more fun.
Oh, okay, great.
I was a woman again, and I was on a carriage, very fancy, like aristocratic vibe. And I felt that we're going somewhere where somebody would announce us something.
Okay.
Again, how do I know? I don't know.
Wow.
And we were walking, and I think I was somewhere like in Paris. That's the sense I got.
Paris. We love Paris.
I was like on the bridge. I really felt like I was in Paris. And I'm wearing this nice dress and walking. We're going somewhere which was kind of like a church. And I was the only woman next to my mom, which is not our current mom.
Okay.
And they basically, I think, were announcing things related to the government, like who got elected or things like that. And I'm sitting there, and I can see a smirk on my face, like a happy face, that either I was just satisfied with the result or I played a role in the result. I don't know. But the point was that I was the only woman next to my mom with a bunch of men there.
Ah, okay.
It was, again, older times, so I guess women didn't have so many rights and all that. And then after that, she just had me journal everything to remember it, because she says usually you forget.
Sorry. How did he bring or she? How did she bring you back to full consciousness?
Well, in the hypnotic state, I was journaling, but I could understand. Like, it was weird. And then she says, she came back again. She said, now you'll be fully conscious and all this, and slightly started like moving my hands and arms and feet, and then I opened my eyes. But I was so tired. Like I didn't sleep all night type thing. And then, I mean, we talked a little bit, and she said drink water, and then I had to go to the office and continue with my meetings. So I was just trying to eat and like drink coffee and wake up basically. And then by the end of the day, like I was totally fine. But for a second, I'm looking at myself thinking, will I just be like this now?
Like in the hypnosis state?
Yeah, like just zen and like slow. But to be honest with you, when she asked me, you know, how you felt and what you think that was for,
Yeah.
I said two big takeaways for me are that one, I can see in each and every one of these people personality traits I have today. So it made it real. And the other thing is that it's so connected to also my Akashic records, which for the ones who
Yeah.
don't know, Akashic records is basically where all our soul's journeys and origins are saved. And when I did that reading, it told me that my biggest lesson in life is to teach and to learn, which is so connected to my North Star. And all I've been doing, the common thread again, is just giving back and teaching and sharing my knowledge. So I think it was a very successful experience overall. Like I didn't, I guess, live with it with any question marks. You just close like a loop of thoughts and
it's just like everything made sense. You felt like everything is in place as it is right now. It kind of like validated, I guess,
exactly
your path and where you're heading towards, which is great. That sounds amazing. I mean, it was probably super crazy to travel through all these different experiences that you've probably lived before.
Yeah,
so like lively.
She said that usually her clients just dive into one. So she was surprised that I did go over a lot.
Really?
But my Akashic records had said that I lived 41 lives. So I'm not surprised.
You're definitely an
That's
old soul.
true. But yeah, I mean, look, I totally recommend it. Like, I think it's very interesting and eye-opening. But yeah, back to your point about traumas. If you're like too scared, definitely don't do it. Like, don't go out of your comfort zone. You gotta be in the right state of mind. But I do think it's powerful and it's cool. Like, I even got to know about it, you know. I could have lived my life and have no clue about this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you never talked to me about this book, I don't think I would have really looked into that either. Like, I do believe in past lives and like the lessons that we take from there, how like they subconsciously get applied in our lives now. But I never would have thought to look into it deeper. But that sounds like an amazing experience. It sounds like you definitely have to be ready before you do it. And I think maybe the Akashic Records is a great first step to tap into that past soul journey that you've had.
Totally agree. I think if they were very conflicting, then I would be so confused. But in my case, they were very aligned, and I think that helped. But the point of this is indeed what you said, like to really help you with what you're gonna live from now on, like where you're heading, what's your focus. And as a soul, I mean, we're so much more than just our current environment and circumstances. So we have to take care of it, and to do that, you have to really listen to your subconscious.
That's so true. And I think I'm going to have to get you back into the studio and definitely go a little bit deeper about consciousness, subconsciousness. How can we tap in to connect more to our subconscious that we usually ignore it? Because I really think that it goes back to everything else we've talked about here about being aligned, being mindful, being present. And, you know, you can really tell the difference when you're not in an aligned state, right? That's where things fall apart. That's where you don't make the great decisions for yourself. So sometimes it's a good reminder to kind of like wake you up and say, I'm not aligned right now. I have to take a step back, but also I think it's really good to do often check-ins with ourselves. Take often breaks, take breaths, and
reflect and reflect.
And journal. I mean, it's crazy that you did a journal in a hypnosis mode. Regardless, I'm so thankful that you were so open and you wanted to share this experience with me and everybody else that will listen to this episode. I'm always very happy to have those deep conversations with you.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't wait to have you back here to talk more about these topics. And that's it. I'm just grateful to have you as my sister.
Oh, me too, sis. Keep up the great work and the awesome episodes. Namaste City, life.
Yes. As you might have heard, I got pretty emotional during this interview. Joe is always so real and open with me, but sharing this moment with all of you and recording it at the studio made it super special for me. Listening about her soul, traveling to all these places, and her experience with hypnosis really touched me. It is really important to know, like we discussed with Joe, when and if you're ready to try hypnosis. I just wanted to share this with all of you because I'm not sure if you are aware about the ways you could tap into your past lives. If you feel like you have been working so much on yourself and you still feel that there is a lot that is unsolved, you might want to learn more about your past lives by looking into your Akashic records and hypnosis. We will also be sharing all the links to the books that Joe mentioned earlier in the description of this episode. I am so excited to be bringing Joe back to the studio and having more of these discussions with her. To learn more about Namaste City and this podcast, please visit namastecitylife.com and feel free to drop us a message by visiting the Contact Us page. You can follow Namaste City on Instagram or Facebook. If you have not already done so, please go to Spotify and or Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thanks for listening to No More Distractions by Namaste City, hosted by me, Sonia. Today's episode guest was my beloved sister, Jo Manjaridu Anasi. You can connect with her through her personal Instagram account at Jo Manju, JOMANTZOU.